Okay, so my name is Glenn Eriksson. I work for a non-profit research organization focusing on applied research and development, and it's established in 2011 here in Sweden. Projects generally focus on open source and data within the transport sector. In case of organizational surplus, we invest in public good development and research, such as standardized open API evaluation protocols with usability assessment criteria, response and load time automation. And we also do elementary guides on building knowledge graphs and querying semantic data to improve interoperability. And all our results are published on our website. So, first I'm going to address open source research. And it's a bit outdated. Most research articles on open source are from 2005 to 2010 and focus only on corporate participation in communities which identify several engagement patterns, from passive consumption, strategic sponsorship to deep community integration. And open source ecosystem studies from 2012 suggest that participation in open source development can reshape organizational practice, including software development methodologies, knowledge management approach, and innovation. Innovation processes. Few studies on how open source participation contribute to organizational transformation, especially in public organization, and lacking pre-existing digital transformation capabilities. And that's where we come in with our study. I'm just gonna... Okay. So first I'm gonna go through digital transformation. You probably know most of this, but I go through it anyway. So, digital transformation mostly study firms within private sector and public organization. Literature review from 2021 conclude that digital transformation is a top-down change initiative consisting of two main themes: malleable organizational design to adopt to constant changing environments, and digital business ecosystem, which describe the ever-evolving and turbulent nature of digital disruption. And organizations that are born digital, they have these capabilities from the beginning. So this figure here is from Warner and Wagner from 2019. Study a traditional organization, not digitally transformed, in 6 different sectors. And the model described mechanism for transformational firms building digital capabilities. Their study shows that rigid organization can redesign internal structures by entering joint venture with born digitals in the digital ecosystem to improve their transformation capabilities. So these are the triggers and sensing, seizing, and transformation capabilities. And you have the enabling factors and internal barriers here. And in the end there is an output, strategic renewal. Then you become digitally transformed. So, public organizations are generally determined by cost focus, outsourcing, contractual relationship, function-based procurement, which impedes digital innovation and transformation. And studies from the mid-2000s established that contractual relationship impedes innovation and response to market change. And another study that showed trust-based relation, more similar to maybe open source community relation, amongst partners is better for fostering innovation and handle turbulent and changing markets. There was one study in the car industry that showed that their relationship could be more than 5 times more cost effective than procuring or contractual relationship. And rigid and silo-based organization can lead to departments creates ad hoc IT solutions called shadow IT to fix or solve immediate problems. This can further fragment the overall IT system environment and create overlap and lead to resource waste. And public sectors and large rigid organizations have problem recruiting the best developer talent that generally focus on organization with less bureaucracy and possibility to work with the latest technology. So the study we did in the public transport sector started with an idea to study, to make a report 2023 on how open source was used to digitally disrupt the public transport sector in Norway. And the report depicts the journey where procurement from previous system vendor was not feasible to obtain political transport objectives. So instead they used open source components to build a working prototype in 6 months. So the unusual part of this story was that the change in the sector was done by a public organization created as a born digital from the start in 2016-17 with the agile principles and engagement in the open source community from the start. So after the report, we decided to do a further study on this by searching in 2024 by searching other member organizations in the open source community to see if their journey resembles the story from Norway. So finding an organization to interview in the community took 1 year and was concluded in October 2025. So the result of the study is now submitted as a full conference paper by me and Professor Hugo Lindman from the University of Gothenburg. So the next slides I'm going to present are the study. But before that, it's important to notice that the model and the study present applies to a developer community. The community is quite small, with a downstream focus, and have a meritocratic governance model, dedicated member organization, and very few hobby programmers. So the relevance for other types of community, such as vendor-sponsored, user or foundation communities with other governance models, needs to be studied further. So this is what we call a community engagement model. So here on the study present an open source community engagement consisting of 3 main elements: organizational input and environment to the left, community mechanism, culture, capabilities in the center, and community output and environment to the right. So if I start to explain here, the resource and government is the resources organizations commit when engaging with the community. The most common resource is developer time, of course, which trigger access to community mechanisms. And developer capability is the technical competence required to participate and interact meaningfully with the community. And then we have organization use case perspective. It's the specific organizational perspective that organization brings to the community, shaped by national regulation, system legacy, and vendor relationship. And then we have Organization environment, which are organization national competence, which is the national pool of developers' talent available for recruitment or contracting. Most organizations struggle to recruit and retain experienced developer nationally. And then we have closed innovation process, is the non-transparent vendor-controlled developer process that organizations are locked into when procuring software systems. And lastly, we have oligopolistic markets, which is the organization dependency to few national system vendors existing in many sectors. So, the three mechanisms transform organizational inputs to community outputs. The mechanisms are interlinked and mutually affecting each other. Community culture and capability are technical attributes. Governance practice and principles affects how the community perform and function. So we have the first mechanism, collaborative development, illustrates how organization, either by taking turn or jointly coordinate development initiatives within the community. Organizational need to align their initiatives with the community objectives and approval from maintainers. And then we have the knowledge creation and transfer, which describe the co-creation and sharing of experience and insights amongst community members at both developer and product owner levels. That's what we saw. And then we have software quality, which emerged from the public visibility of the code repository, professional norms and pride amongst developers. Then we have community culture, that we have meritocratic principles, means that the best technical solution is chosen and governs the decision making in the community. And altruistic milieu relates to the cooperative and welcoming environment that sustain community participation and lower barriers for new members. And then we have the trust-based governance, is the reputational currency that organization accumulates through sustained contribution and loyalty to community objectives. And then we have community capabilities. The state-of-the-art digital technology portray the interest in finding the best possible solution technically to one or a set of problems. And then we have modular and adaptable system design, portray the open source solution are made more adaptable and configurable to suit different use cases. And then open standard and format are the digital attributes that enables interoperability and supplier independence. So on the community output side, this is what organization can receive from the engagement in the community. So digital resources and spillover is technical output like interoperable datasets, algorithms, and other digital valuable artifacts accessible through APIs and SDKs. Spillover means that organizations benefit from development initiatives they did not fund or initiated themselves. And then we have cultivated developer capabilities, represent the improved competence and accumulation as a side effect of participation in the community, knowledge transfer and co-creation mechanisms. And pluralistic use case perspective entails how organization can get insights from how comparable organization in different national and regulation contexts solve shared domain problems. And then we have global competence pool, which is the accumulated experience of the community, accessible through documentation, community channels, and direct relationship with contributors and maintainers. And then we have permeable innovation process, describe the cross-organizational knowledge exchange and collaboration to pursue objective and solve common domain problems. And lastly, digital ecosystem depicts the extended network of partnership, regional clusters, and spin-off initiatives that forms around the community itself. So these are all the components that we saw when we did our 15 interviews and transcribed all the interviews and analyzed the data. And between all these components, we saw also relationship. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the interesting part here is maybe what made an organization join the community in the beginning, and it was actually the closed innovation process, especially for a traditional organization. And they want to access the collaborative development in the community to take part of the agile development process. And also, the oligopolistic market made them push to access the community capabilities like state-of-the-art digital technology inherent to the digital or the artifacts in the community, which you can access since it's open source anyway, but to be part of the collaborative development process gets you access to all these other things on the output side here. So the only thing here, maybe on this image that's not shown, is the it's a recursive feedback loop from digital resources and spillover back to resource endowment, and from cultivated developer capabilities back to developer capabilities on the input side. So it's a reinforcing feedback loop. The further you engage yourself in the community, the stronger your capabilities become, your developer, and the spillover effect and digital resources access to them. So, what does this imply? The study contributes to digital transformation literature by showing an alternative pathway for public and traditional organization, that transformation can be triggered through bottom-up initiatives when IT department or similar engage in the open source community. It also contributes to the body of open source studies by coupling community development and engagement to building digital transformation capabilities in organizations. And the engagement model describes how organizations interact with the community dynamics, which mutually shape each other and serve as a vehicle for change for traditional organization. And also, organizations adopt their structure and process and practice over time to align with the community and the governance mechanisms. And the community, on the other side, also evolves through diverse organizational interaction by incorporating different use case perspectives and expanding its pool of capabilities and resources. So for the organization, this has also some implications. Sorry. Engagement with communities can, through co-involvement, build transformative organizational capabilities. These pathways require investment in developer competence, allocating sustained resources, and commitment to community principles. The evaluation of viability of the community is a critical preliminary activity. Organization needs to assess not only technical factors, but also other organizations but also other things such as governance maturity, contributor diversity, and alignment between community objectives and the organization. And engagement in the open source community may manifest as a partial or departmental transformation. This is an attractive opportunity for structurally rigid organization or public organizations. This can lead to partial transformation by enabling organizational learning from others in the community. The engagement opens up access to state-of-the-art technology and modular system design to fit a wider range of use case scenarios. Organization can access this through participation in the open source, or can access this since it is open source, but loses out on the collaborative knowledge transfer and access to the pool of competence associated with the engagement in the community. Organizations that invest sustain resources and demonstrate loyalty to the community objectives gain influence and access to deeper collaboration opportunities, and access to the pool of competence and a greater innovation potential. And access to the global pool of developer competence permits organizations to contract or hire individuals within the community for development initiatives. These talents are not easily hired or recruited nationally and are not accessible if the organization is not part of the organization. So, is this the road to digital transformation? So we're seeing that procurement of off-the-shelf and standardized solutions based on functional requirements do not facilitate knowledge transfer or trigger change initiatives in traditional organizations. So 2 decades of digital transformation research confirms this together with study in economics and management strategies. So what our study observed is a new pathway for transforming traditional organization or public organization. That IT departments in this organization can engage in the community and can influence and trigger change in other parts of the organization. Also, open source community with trust-based governance culture and altruistic environment create a condition for organizational learning and capability development that extends far beyond the technical knowledge transfer. Community engagement allow organizations to challenge oligopolistic markets and functioning as innovation infrastructure for sector dominated by proprietary solution or vendor lock-in. So to summarize, to invest in developer competence is a necessity, either by having in-house or procured competence to contribute and participate in the community development. In our studies, organizations have different setups with either all competence in-house with developer teams, project manager, product owner, etc., to long-term procurement and external teams working locally or remote. But to keep knowledge, trust and long-term commitment to the community, respondent had at least a project leader or a product owner in-house in our study. So the longer and deeper engagement is, the better the opportunity becomes when it comes to knowledge transfer, use case perspective and synergy, etc. So tied to the long-term investment of resources is loyalty to community objectives, which increase influence and access to deeper collaboration and transformation potential. This means that organizations sometimes has to prioritize community objectives before their own goals to benefit the community viability. And organization needs to abide to the altruistic culture by assisting other members to build capabilities for the long-term benefit of the community, and helping onboard new members and assisting other organizations building capabilities which strengthen the trust, contributing to the viability of the community overall. Let's see. Wrong way. Okay. So, The study is part of a 3-year-long research project funded by Swedish Transport Administration, that is Trafikverket, and ending now in the spring here, 2026. And the interesting part in our study is that public organization triggered digital disruption in the national public transport sector and became a core maintainer of an open source community in 2 years. And the story here is also that the national system vendor that existed there before, they have now moved on to more unmatured markets and selling their products. And also the digital disruption also triggered that one system vendor now support open standards that they didn't do in the beginning when they asked if they can use their proprietary system. But the system vendor only sells this solution in the market where, in Norway, when the disruption actually occurred. So they don't sell these products to the rest of Europe, just to lock them in. So this is the nature of the market we see in the public transport sector. So now I'm going to open up for questions, but maybe also I can ask the audience if you know similar stories to the one I shared here. How a public organization become like a core community member and causing digital disruption. So if you have some stories, please share them. And by that, I open for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's not the same kind of study, which this work is super important, and really grateful for your work. I have seen in certain industrial sectors, consortiums of industrial companies, often very large, try to bring forth standards in their industry to promote greater diversity of suppliers. For example, the automobile industry has some standards along those lines. But I think to reach the public sector, you need things like the ability to sign framework agreements. You also need, perhaps, sovereignty rules. What was your experience there?
Well, the thing is, what drove the transformation in Norway was that they were fed up with the system vendors and they couldn't provide what they asked them. And the deliverance cycles was 9 months, so they needed to come up with change requests 3 months before, and then they had to wait another 6 months, so 9 months in total, and there were no guarantee that their requests were approved. So they said, this is not going to work. If we're going to change the public transport sector here locally, we need to do something. So that triggered a search for open source components. And luckily, maybe in this case, they had some really talented programmers working as consultant in the beginning. And they found OpenTrip Planner and different kind of open source components. And they actually managed to build something in 6 months that the system vendor could not do one function in 9 months. So the politician said, okay, here's the money. Go ahead and build a new organization. And now this organization had more than 300 developers. And they're actually triggering changing in different parts of Europe now. But there is a still really tight lock between vendors and public sector entities around Europe. So it's still not the dominating factors. So yeah, at the moment, but change happening slowly, I guess.
Anyone have any more questions? I see a lot of people scratching their heads. Just some questions.
Someone else working in public sector or public transport sector?
Okay, it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.